All right, welcome back. We are nearing the end of this series. Our game is almost complete. And in this video, we are going to begin working on a second level. We will introduce a couple more objects into the game, a little more code to program those objects, and I'll show you how easy it is to add new features to it as we come up with them. But before we start getting a level 2 set up, I have a few more little loose ends or bugs in the game that need to be fixed before we move forward. So the first thing I am going to cover is an issue with our coin counting. So I am going to run our game in debug layout. We're on level 1 right now, or I am. And if I hit debug layout, it's going to give me the debugger, but it's going to start me out on level 1. And down here we have our debugger, and I'm just going to let him run back and forth for a second, and I'm going to come down here, make sure you're on system, and that'll bring up all of this over here in the middle, and I'm going to scroll down till I find global variables, and I'm going to look for coins in level. The way we have this set up is with a loop, it counts all the coins that we have placed in each level. So I'm going to hit this little eyeball here, and when I click on that, it adds it to my watch tab. So if I go over to my watch tab, I can see coins in level is 20. Okay, I'm going to go ahead up here and finish the game. And there is our next screen. Now I'm going to go to the map. So what you're seeing here is we passed level 1, but it's level 2 is still locked. That's because we never ran through the code that we have set up in the map. Had we started from the very beginning of the title screen, this wouldn't be the case, but we're just play testing, so not a big deal right now. Now down here we see our coins in level variable is at 20. That's the last it read. If I go back into level 1, it recounted them and it added to the variable. So now it says we have 40 coins in the level. If I win and I hit next, now our level 2 is unlocked. If I go into level 2, it added 4 more because there's 4 coins in this level, in this template. So there's my 4 coins. I'm going to win the game. And then I'm going to hit next. And then I'll go into level 3. And they added 4 more. So it's saying there's 48 coins in the level, and what it's doing is it's just counting the coins each time we go into a level. I'm going to exit out of this. The issue here is that we never reset the coins. So up here I have the main event sheet open, and I'm going to go into that. And in our initialize main group, we have an onStart of layout event where we start setting a lot of our variables back to 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and reset our coins in level variable. We can add an action, go to system, and we want to set the value of coins in level to 0. Now at the beginning of every level, it'll set our coins back to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and preview the project. So we don't have the debugger open this time. I'm going to hit play. So I am going to show you another little bug we have. I'm going to go into level 3. And we will beat it. And when I hit next, it shows us with 2 crowns and it opens level 4. That's good. Now I don't know if you noticed, but when we first started up the game this time around, there was 3 crowns over level 1. And now that we've gone through and played through the level and it went back through all the code in the map, it went back to we only earned 2 crowns. But now I want to show you something else. We have 2, 3, and 2. So I'm going to go back into level 2 and replay level 2. And I will just go ahead and beat it. Now when I hit next to go back to the map, level 3 is unlocked, and level 4 is unlocked and has the map marker, and that's correct. But we have lost all our crowns, and we've ended up on the wrong animation frame. And level 1, we didn't even play it, but now it's on the wrong animation frame too, because it says we have 3 crowns. So a lot of just really crazy stuff going on. I'm going to exit out of this, and the fix is actually very simple. I'm going to open up our map layout, not the event sheet, but the layout itself, because we want these objects on screen so that we can see them. If we go over in our project panel over to the right side here, I'm going to open our families folder. And when we were making the map, we created a family called map levels. And I can open that up and you see we have all the map levels that appear on our map, all the objects. But what's happening is every time we exit out of the map, every time we click on a level or click quit, we are exiting the map and the map event sheet. When we come back to the map, these objects are permanently here because we place them on the layout. They lose the values that get put into them when the player plays the game. But Construct 3 has a feature that can actually prevent this from happening. So if we click on our map levels family, make sure it's highlighted, that'll bring up its properties over here on the left. And we can go into the behaviors and set one behavior for the entire family. So I'll select Edit Family Behaviors. We'll add a new behavior, and up here at the top, there's one right in the middle called Persist. And Persist makes instances of this object remember their state when returning to that layout, rather than resetting to the initial objects. So let's add that. We can exit out of that. Now, every object that is in this family has the persist behavior. So it will keep track of all the values that each individual object accumulates over the course of a player playing the game. Okay, one of the other things that was happening when we were just playtesting it just now, the crowns for level 1, we only earned 2 when we played it, but we were being given 3 whenever we came back to the map a second or third time. And that's because it kept adding a value to the crowns count for each level. And this is the same situation with the coins. We set the crowns variable, but the crowns variable changes every time we play a level. So what we need to do is just reset the crowns variable at the beginning of each level. So let's go into our functions, and we're going to go into our function start level. And here in this first section where we begin to set up the function, we do the same thing we did over on the main with the coins. We set some variables right off the bat. So we can add an action to this section, go into System, and set the value. And this one, we want to set crowns to 0. And we don't have any weights in here, so we don't have to move this around. It can stay right there. So now our crowns variable will reset at the beginning of each level. That way, all of our level objects can maintain whatever value we gave them when we played the actual level. Okay, I'm going to close that up. And then I'm going to close up some of this. We're done with families. So one last thing I want to cover over in our main event sheet in our pause. Whether you're on mobile or desktop, whenever you click out of the window or you get out of the app and go to your home screen on your phone, typically whatever game you're playing pauses. And that's something I want to implement into this game. And this is really easy. I'm going to go to Add an Event and in System, and then we scroll down to Start and End. And down here we have one called On Suspended. And let's insert that. And then I'm going to drag this all the way up to right there. So under our tap gesture block of code, we have this on suspended, and our action is going to be System, and we'll set time scale to 0. If it's on suspended, it will set the timescale to 0, and then it'll run the pause code. And that way, when you come back to it, it'll be paused, and you can just unpause it. I just wanted to get those few things out of the way. Let's go into our level 2 tab. If you don't have that called up already, go ahead, call that up. And if you click on the layout, we can see our size is 1500 by 2000. That is the size of our level 1 and all our template levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in down here, unlock my collisions layer, and I'm going to delete all of these collisions except for one yellow and one red. That way I don't have to drag in something new. And I'm just gonna take these down. I have my snapping turned on. It's snap to grid, and it is set at 16 by 16. And I'm going to save a coin over here and get rid of these coins. Our player, I'm going to drag him off to the side, and our diamond object off to the side. In fact, our coin is on the wrong layer. I'm going to move our coin to objects. Okay, now I can lock all these layers so we don't accidentally mess with anything. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to try to design this level a little differently than our level 1. Our level 1's just really kind of basic to help the player get started. In level 2, I'm going to go a little bit wider so there's more area to cover each level that we go up. If we click on the layout, I'm going to change the size to a width of 2500, and the height I'm going to leave at 2000. So if you already have an idea in mind, or maybe you've tried to design your own levels already, go with that. I'm just going to use this as an example. If you want to use it as a guide or copy it, feel free to do so. So I'm going to go to my tile map objects and unlock it and click on it. And then I'm going to drag this out to make sure that it covers the entire playable area. So with that still selected, I'm going to get the eraser tool up here. I have my tile map panel set up here. If yours is not on screen, go to your menu, view, bars, and make sure your tile map bar is checked. And then once you get that up on screen, you can slide it into anywhere you want to on the screen, and some guides will pop up to show you where it will go when you release the mouse button. Okay, with the eraser tool selected, I'm going to get rid of this barrel, and then I'll lock that and come down here to tile map bricks, unlock it, and click on it and do the same thing. Make sure that this covers the whole area. And then I'm going to take my eraser tool, and actually I'm going to take the selection tool and draw out a larger square, and then get my eraser tool and use that to erase. We can get our little pointer arrow there, and I'm going to click on the layout, and I'm going to turn my grid on and just paint a couple of bricks, kind of like an L shape. And that's going to give me an idea of where my left side starts. And then I can zoom out a little, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool and just draw a line all the way across to right about, I'm just going to do it to right about there. Then I'll draw me a wall, and actually I'm going to click out of this, and I'm going to change my grid to 32 by 32. Now, when we made the last level, I know that our player can jump just under 5 tiles high. So I'm going to go up 5 tiles because I don't want him hitting the ceiling. And I'm just going to draw in a roof. And I'll just go across like that. And I'm going to draw me a wall over here as well. Something like that. Okay. I'm going to go in and just start laying out a level, something I would strongly suggest for any game, any style of game, any kind of preparation you do for a game, is to get pencil or pen or markers, whatever, and some paper, and draw out some ideas by hand. I have some ideas sketched out, and I'm going to just transfer those onto our canvas here, and when I'm done, I will come back and do a little explaining. Okay, this is a very basic setup for this level, and I'm going to show you a few things of some ideas that I came up with to use what we already have to create new traps for the player. We will put in our new object up here. I will show you what that's all about. Let's go ahead and do that now. Over here in our layers panel, or wherever your layers panel is, make sure that the objects layer is highlighted and unlocked. Double click anywhere on the layout and scroll down, and let's pick sprite, and we can insert this wherever. Let's go over to load an image from a file, and you're going to want to navigate to the objects folder in the assets that I have provided. If you don't have those yet, there is a link to those assets in the description of every video in this series. So inside our objects folder, we have the button object, and I am going to open that. Mine looks like the collision box is a little off, so I'm just going to right click on any one of the nodes and set to bounding box. That'll cover the whole thing. And then the origin, I want the bottom left corner. Exit out of that, and I'm going to name this obj_button. And then over here in our project panel, in our object types folder, I am going to slide our button object into our sprites folder and in the objects folder. So let's put that in the objects folder. Okay. And then I'm going to take this little guy and I'm going to drag him down over into this wall right here. Now I had some spikes set up because I needed to measure this area out. So I'm going to go into my tile map objects, unlock it, select it, get my eraser, and I'm going to erase all my spiked tiles. Then I can lock that back up. Now let's go back into the objects layer here, and we can double click on the layout and go down to sprites. And we're going to insert another object. So let's go back to our folder here, and we want the spike. We'll open that up. And our bounding box is awful. So I'm going to right click, say set to bounding box, and then I'm going to right click and delete one of them. So all we have is 3. And then I'll zoom in and take this top one and do it just like that. That should be good. And then our origin point, the same deal. Let's go bottom left, exit out of that, and let's rename this obj_spike. I'm going to drag him down right about there, and I'm going to make some copies by holding down Control, clicking, and dragging out another copy. And I'm just going to keep doing that until I get all the spikes that I want. Now the reason that we have individual objects for spikes instead of tiles is because we're going to need to control these spikes. And instead of trying to control animations inside of a tile or a tile set, it would be much easier just to control a specific object type. Let's look at what's going to happen here. The idea is we're going to use this part of the level right here. We're going to use it twice. This makes the level last a little bit longer, and we get to reuse something that we've already put work into, but we also get to do something to change it so it's not just running back over the same thing. So the idea is once the player makes it to this area, they're going to have to figure out the timing to navigate across the tops of these barrels without landing on spikes. And they got this little patch here, and then they're going to hop up here, and whenever the player comes in contact with this, our button object, the button is going to make a sound and it's going to animate, and the button is going to make the spikes sink into the ground. That way, when we come back this way, we won't have the spikes in our way, and these as well, which I need to go back into my tile map objects and get my eraser. I need to erase these. Those were placements. And on my objects layer, I'm going to drag out a couple more copies of these spikes, because the idea is when you get up here, if you hit the barrel, you would go this other way. And if you try to jump, there's no way you're going to be able to jump far enough to clear those spikes. So those will also sink. And that's really the main goal, is getting to this part. But to get to that part, you have to get to this button. And to get to this button, you have to cross all these spikes as well. So we're just able to add a couple more challenges just by putting together this one little section. An object that we don't have on the screen yet. Let's go over to our object types folder. In our sprites, I'm going to open up our objects folder. I'm going to slide our object spike into that folder, and I'm going to drag out the object spring. We are going to need a spring in a couple places, I believe. Yep. So we're going to need one right here. We're going to need one right here. And we're going to need one right here. And I believe that will do it. I'm going to drag our diamond up here. This is going to be our goal. Put them up like that maybe. This is just a quick demonstration. I will show you what my completed level looks like in my version of this game. Let's go ahead and add some collisions. We have our yellow. Whoops, let's unlock collisions. So we have our yellow, which is our walls, and our red, which is our floors. So I'm just going to drag out a copy and set up my floors. So now I'm just going to go through and put some walls and floors into place. Okay, in our meta folder, we're going to need a jump through collision and a death collision. So our jump throughs, here's where I'm going to change our snap to grid back to 16 by 16. And we can make these a little thinner. Okay, so before we get to the death collisions, something I want to show you that I did was taking some of these areas and moving them to where they're only 16 pixels high, and then we can move our walls up so there's more area to connect with. And in situations like this, I'm going to have to move it all the way back, and then we can take another copy and just make a piece like that. We can move that up, and then I'm going to grab this piece and copy it, and want to make sure that our barrels have floors. So here's a couple more of those types of situations. I'm going to just copy out a small piece like that, and we can extend the wall. Same thing here. And then maybe again up here. And I'm going to use these jump throughs for these guys, our little ledges here. Okay. So the only thing left, well, we need to set up our springs. I'm going to set a wall up for our spring, and I'm just going to move these into place. It's just those three, so we have 3 walls. And then I'm going to turn our snapping off and go in, and I want to make sure that this wall doesn't go all the way to the top, because if the player lands on the edge of the spring and this is all the way, they're going to hit the wall and the character's just going to turn around and go the other way. But we want the spring to kind of override that. I'm going to bring it down a little, and you can see it sticks out from the edge of the spring. So come up here and do the same thing with this one. This one doesn't need one, actually. What we do need is some spikes. So let's go into our objects, and let's just draw out a few spikes here. Something like that. So if you come anywhere close to the spring, it's just going to spring you up. There's no need to have a wall to turn you back the other direction. Okay, our last one up here looks like it is not in the right place. There we go. And just adjust it like that. All right, turn my snapping back on. Now all we have left for collisions is our death collision. So we can cover up all our spikes. And if you remember from before, something that I like to do is when you get them in place, you can turn the snapping off, come in here, and kind of just shorten the area just a little bit. So I'm going to get all my death collisions set up. Just keep in mind that these spikes are objects. So I'm going to delete this collision box here because these are actual objects, as are these. So those don't need collision boxes. We're going to give them their own code. I think that is a good place to start or get started, and a good place to stop. I encourage you to get a level designed, or you can just throw something together like this. And make sure that we have some objects in here. And remember how I explained how this works. When you hit the button, the spikes are going to go down. So design an area like that with that in mind, that you will have to avoid the spikes going one way, and then we will turn the spikes off and you won't have that obstacle going back. But we'll also implement another reason to have these spikes go down. And we will get that set up in the next video. So I'm going to stop this one here, and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to save.